Hello everybody, my name is Pamela Oliveira and we'll begin another episode of what is happening in Brazil. Check it out this week's latest news.
Jair Bolsonaro's entourage has more than 15 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus, on the heels of a trip to the United States to visit Donald Trump between March 7th and the 10th. Because of suspected exposure, President Jair Bolsonaro was instructed by the Health Ministry to avoid contact with the public. Nevertheless, he attended a street protest against the National Congress and the Supreme Court on March 15th. At the march, some protesters called the coronavirus a hoax. For ignoring medical advice and inciting his base to gather in public, the current president now faces 2 impeachment requests submitted to Congress shortly after the trip. The requests cite a series of crimes of legal responsibility, among them exposing people to the virus. Protests against Bolsonaro also took place, and to avoid public gatherings, the population banged pots and shouted "Bolsonaro out" from the windows of their homes. With various ministers and undersecretaries diagnosed with COVID-19, and because of the strong reaction by the population, in a press conference, Jair Bolsonaro used a face mask, recognized the severity of the situation, and declared a state of public calamity in the country. With the declaration of a state of public calamity, announced on Wednesday, the 18th, the Bolsonaro government started taking new steps to deal with the global coronavirus outbreak. Cases in Brazil are soaring and have reached more than 300, with 4 deaths in the first 20 days. In the public calamity request given to Congress, the government has asked for the release of funds from the budget, opening the door to more expenditures beyond those projected for the fiscal year. Even in this calamity, Jair Bolsonaro's government maintains its commitment to austerity measures already in place, and that have had a negative impact on public funding for healthcare. Today, Brazil faces the coronavirus challenge with 20 billion less reais for its national healthcare system, SUS. Even with these cuts, SUS is still one of the biggest public healthcare systems in the world. And differently than in the United States, where healthcare is privatized, SUS provides care to the entire population for free.
Though responsible for maintaining 40% of Brazilian households, the black woman is still the most susceptible of all the worst working conditions in society. To cause a paradigm shift, the Grana Preta or Black Cash project comes about in July of 2019 as an empowerment strategy for this group through the raising of self-esteem and financial education. Idealized and created by the journalist Mônica Costa, the project has reached more than 1,000 women all over Brazil and is expanding and becoming a platform for the black feminist struggle.
Promoting the empowerment and recognition of the black woman in the business universe. This is the Grana Preta's project's compass. For almost a year, we have been gaining ground and reaching out to women that live or have their roots in the ghettos of São Paulo.
We live in a capitalist society, so you can't go to school, you can't dress, you can't eat, you can't see new places if you don't have money. Even if it's in your pocket, someone has to pay for that situation. So, I began to understand that financial education is freedom for women, for working black women in past centuries. This formula for freedom is what we must go after.
For Mônica Costa, the project's intellectual mentor, the portal seeks to shake the structures that keep black women at the bottom of the social pyramid.
Women work very hard, and I know this myself. We don't only do one thing. We are extremely creative, we can always come up with a solution, we are able to cope, we are resilient. But we can't keep the money in our pockets because we live in a society that says we don't deserve it. So, this Grana Preta process, it came about to show that we do deserve it, that we are capable of it, we are innovative, we are creative and deserve to have whatever we want because we are able to.
Mônica taught us how to review ourselves in a different way, which is the view that ties back to the past with the time of slavery and the many things black people have been through, the many things we have practiced that have been forgotten or buried as time passed, forgotten because of the day-to-day rush, buried by society, by many things. Therefore, for me, this was an awakening. We've previously discussed on our show the environmental crime committed by the Vale Mining Company in Brumadinho, Minas Gerais. One of the company's dam burst and killed 262 people in January of last year. In the city of São Paulo, the artist Mundano made an 800 square meter mural on a building to honor the victims of the crime. He used the toxic mud that is spewed from the dam to create a new rendering of one of Brazil's most famous pieces of art. The work displayed the diversity of Brazilian workers through more than 50 faces. Mundano's work is also a denouncement of the violence and impunity of predatory mining in Brazil.
Primeiro de tudo, eu sempre imaginei que precisavam monumento.
I always thought to myself that the victims needed a public monument made for them. We have monuments for war, for explorers, and there are no monuments for those who built all of this. So I had a problem with that. This is an homage, but it's also a scream, right? A scream of remembrance. Look here, Brumadinho happened because Brazilian people have no memory. We forget, so it's a way to tattoo a building, tattoo the concrete in the middle of São Paulo, this financial hub, for everyone to remember that mining has its costs. Mining has always been predatory. So I gave myself the challenge. Is it possible to build it with toxic mud? So I took the mud, did some tests, and the challenge became how much paint I would need. How to make this paint, because I'd already done it in a smaller scale. So it took about a year of research in order to be able to paint something of this size.
A original da Tarsila do Amaral de 19...
The original by Tarsila do Amaral from 1937 had 51 characters. I drew 22, and I wouldn't be able to represent all the victims, all those affected or missing. So I put something together that would bring about the same thought process brought by Tarsila 87 years ago, the diversity of workers of our country. It's a great tribute to the victims of Brumadinho, but at the same time for all the workers of our time to feel represented. I saw this while making this mural.
Now it's time to get to know the flavors and sounds of Brazil in our segment Brazilianism. Hi there, my name is Marilia Rojas and today I'll be making an organic tomato sauce. You can use it in a pizza, spaghetti, in a stroganoff or anything that requires sauce. For this, we will need half a kilo of ripe tomatoes, half a carrot, a small beet, a small diced onion, 2 cloves of ground garlic, a tablespoon of olive oil, and a teaspoon of salt. Let's put the diced onion, garlic, and olive oil in a pan. I'm gonna cook it a bit to shrink the onion and the garlic. Now I'm going to cut the tomatoes and put them in the pan with the beet, the carrot, the salt, the fresh basil leaves, and half of a cup of water, just so it doesn't stick at the bottom. I'm gonna cover it and let it cook. After 5 minutes, stir a bit and cover it again. After it reaches this consistency, turn the stove off and we're gonna mix it in the blender. If you prefer the sauce a little more watery, just run it through a strainer, but I prefer it thicker like this. That is all for today, folks. I see you next week.